Welcome, dear listener, to a gentle journey through the misty realms of Norse mythology. Tonight, we'll drift together through ancient tales that once echoed around crackling fires in longhouses across Scandinavia over 1,000 years ago. These stories, preserved in medieval texts like the Prose Edda and Poetic Edda, offer us a window into how our ancestors understood the mysteries of existence, the changing seasons, and the eternal dance between order and chaos. As we begin this evening's journey, let your breathing slow and deepen naturally. There's no need to force anything. Simply allow your body to settle into whatever position feels most comfortable, as if you were nestling into a warm fur beside a glowing hearth in a Viking hall. Outside, imagine the aurora borealis dancing silently across a star-filled sky, those same northern lights that our Norse ancestors believed were reflections of the rainbow bridge connecting the worlds. The stories we'll explore tonight come from the rich oral traditions of the Norse people, eventually recorded by scholars like Snorri Sturluson in 13th century Iceland. But these weren't merely tales told for entertainment around winter fires. They formed the spiritual and cultural foundation of entire civilizations, explaining everything from why thunder roars across the sky to why the seasons change, from how the world began to how it will eventually be reborn. These ancient peoples lived in harmony with the rhythms of a harsh but magnificent landscape. Long winters gave way to brilliant summers, fjords cut deep into mountainous coastlines, and the very ground beneath their feet sometimes trembled with volcanic activity. Their mythology reflects this intimate relationship with natural forces, seeing divine personalities in every storm, every earthquake, every change of season. What makes Norse mythology particularly fascinating is its complexity and psychological depth. These aren't simple morality tales with clear heroes and villains. Instead, they present us with nuanced characters who embody different aspects of human nature. The gods themselves are flawed beings who struggle with jealousy, fear, love, and loss, much as we do. They face an uncertain future, knowing that even their great power cannot prevent the eventual twilight of their world. Yet within this realistic acknowledgement of impermanence lies a profound hope. The Norse vision includes not just ending but renewal, not just death but rebirth. As we journey together through these timeless stories, let their ancient wisdom carry you gently toward peaceful rest, just as they once comforted countless generations before us during the long northern nights. Picture, if you will, an enormous ash tree stretching infinitely upward and outward, its roots and branches connecting all of existence like a living network of life and energy. This is Yggdrasil, the world tree, perhaps the most beautiful and profound symbol in all of Norse cosmology. The name itself means Odin's horse, referring to the time when the All-Father hung himself from its branches in pursuit of ultimate wisdom, but we'll return to that haunting tale later in our journey. Yggdrasil stands at the absolute center of everything that is, was, or ever will be. Its trunk rises through the very heart of existence, while its three mighty roots extend deep into three sacred wells, each one a source of profound wisdom and power. The first root reaches down to Urd's well, where the three Norns, those mysterious sisters who weave the fates of gods and mortals alike, tend to the tree's health each day with water so pure it shines like liquid silver in the eternal twilight of that sacred place. The second root extends to Mimir's well, where the severed head of the wise giant Mimir guards waters of memory and prophecy. The third root stretches into Virgelmer, the churning spring in Niflheim from which all cold rivers flow, where the dragon Nhggr gnaws eternally at the root's base, representing the forces of decay that constantly work to undermine even the most sacred foundations of existence. Archaeological evidence from across Scandinavia suggests that sacred groves and individual trees played central roles in Norse religious practices. Historical accounts from writers like Adam of Bremen describe temples built around living trees, and excavations have revealed ritual deposits around ancient oak and ash groves. The concept of a cosmic tree connecting all worlds wasn't just metaphorical to these people. It was reflected in their daily spiritual practices and their understanding of how the divine manifested in the natural world. In Yggdrasil's highest branches perches a great eagle, whose beating wings create the winds that blow across all the worlds. Between the eagle's eyes sits a hawk called Vedrfolnir, whose keen sight surveys all that happens below. At the tree's base, the dragon Nhggr coils and gnaws, while up and down the trunk scurries a squirrel named Ratatoskr, carrying messages, often insults and challenges, between the eagle above and the dragon below. This constant communication between opposing forces creates a dynamic tension that keeps the entire cosmos in motion. The tree supports 9 interconnected worlds, each with its own distinct character, inhabitants, and role in the cosmic order. High in the golden branches lies Asgard, where the Aesir gods dwell in their magnificent halls. Vanaheim, home of the Vanir gods, exists in harmony nearby, representing the peaceful resolution of ancient conflicts between different divine families. Alfheim houses the light elves, beings of beauty and wisdom who tend to the growing things of the world. In the middle realm sits Midgard, our world, the world of humans, comfortably positioned between the divine and the chaotic. It's encircled by the vast world ocean where Jormungand, the world serpent, sleeps with his tail in his mouth, holding the boundaries of human civilization in place through his very existence. Beyond these boundaries lie Jotunheim, the wild realm of the giants, and Muspelheim, the land of fire where Surtur waits with his flaming sword for the end of all things. Below stretch the darker realms. Svartalfheim, where the dark elves craft wonders in their underground forges, Niflheim, the primordial realm of ice and mist from which all cold things flow, and Helheim, the realm of the honored dead ruled by Hel, the half-living daughter of Loki. Each world exists in relationship to all the others, connected by the roots and branches of the great tree, accessible through hidden pathways known only to gods, heroes, and those who possess special knowledge. What's particularly fascinating about this cosmology is how it reflects the Norse understanding of interconnectedness and balance. Unlike many mythologies that strictly separate the divine from the mundane, or good from evil, Yggdrasil shows us a universe where everything influences everything else in subtle but profound ways. The health of the cosmic tree depends on the actions of beings across all 9 worlds. When the dragon gnaws at the roots, the Norns must tend them with sacred water. When the eagle stirs the winds, all worlds feel the movement. This interconnected vision extends to Norse understanding of time itself. Rather than viewing existence as a linear progression toward some final judgment, they saw time as cyclical, seasons of growth and decay, creation and destruction, all held in dynamic balance by the world tree. Every ending contains within it the seeds of a new beginning, just as every spring emerges from winter's apparent death. The tree is constantly under threat from various forces of decay and destruction, yet it remains forever green and growing. Deer browse on its leaves, yet new ones always appear. Storms bend its branches, yet they never break. This resilience mirrors the Norse concept of how life itself persists, not through avoiding challenges, but by bending without breaking, by finding renewal within apparent destruction. As you rest tonight, imagine yourself cradled safely in the protective embrace of these great cosmic branches. Feel yourself connected to all life through this sacred tree, held gently but securely in the vast network of existence that links every star to every leaf, every breath to every heartbeat, every dream to every dawn that has ever broken across any of the 9 worlds. Before there were gods or worlds, before there was light or darkness as we understand them, there existed only the great void called Ginnungagap, a name that seems to whisper itself like wine through infinite empty spaces. This wasn't mere nothingness, but rather a pregnant emptiness, a void filled with potential, waiting for the first spark that would set creation in motion. To the north of this cosmic gap lay Niflheim, a realm of bitter, primordial cold where poisonous streams called the Olivigar flowed from the spring Hvergelmir. These rivers carried within them the seeds of all venomous things, all ice, all the harsh necessities that would later define the northern wilderness. To the south burned Muspelheim, the land of fire and flame ruled by Surtr, whose very existence promised eventual destruction and renewal. Between these extremes, in the heart of Ginnungagap, the meeting of ice and fire created the first stirrings of life. This creation story reflects something profound about the Norse people's intimate knowledge of their harsh yet magnificent environment. Living in a land where fjords were carved by glaciers, where volcanic activity periodically reshaped the landscape, where survival depended on understanding the delicate balance between fire and ice, they created a mythology that honored both creative and destructive forces as necessary partners in the ongoing work of existence. When the warm breath of Muspelheim met the frozen streams of Niflheim, the ice began to melt, and from this cosmic moisture emerged Ymir, the first of the frost giants. Ymir was enormous beyond comprehension, containing within his body the raw material from which all the worlds would eventually be fashioned. But he wasn't alone in those first moments of creation. The same melting ice that formed Ymir also revealed Audhumla, the primordial cow whose 4 rivers of milk sustained the giant and whose rough, warm tongue began to lick the salt from the ice around her. For 3 days, Audhumla licked at a particular block of salty ice, and as she worked, something extraordinary emerged. On the first day, hair appeared in the ice. On the second day, a head. On the third day, she licked free an entire man, Buri, the first of the gods, beautiful and strong and wise. This image of creation through patient, repetitive care speaks to something deeply nurturing in the Norse understanding of how good things come to be. Buri became the father of Bor, who in turn married Bestla, a daughter of the giants. This union between god and giant would prove to be a recurring theme in Norse mythology, the understanding that creation requires the marriage of opposing forces, that strength comes from integrating rather than simply conquering what seems alien or dangerous. From this divine marriage came 3 sons who would reshape existence itself, Odin, Vili, and Ve. Meanwhile, as Ymir slept, his body produced the first generation of giants. From the sweat under his left arm emerged a male and female, while his legs created a son together. These first giants were beings of immense power but chaotic nature, representing the wild, untamed forces that would always exist in tension with the ordered world the gods would create. The 3 brother gods, Odin the wise, Vili the willing, and Ve the sacred, looked upon the primordial world and saw both its potential and its problems. Ymir and his offspring threatened to overwhelm all existence with their chaotic fertility. The brothers knew that for an ordered cosmos to emerge, they would have to act decisively, even if it meant committing what might be seen as the first murder. Together, they killed Ymir, and from his death, they created everything we know. This wasn't an act of mere violence, but a cosmic sacrifice that transformed chaos into order, raw potential into organized reality. Ymir's flesh became the earth itself, rich and fertile. His blood flowed to become the seas, rivers, and lakes that give life to all growing things. His bones were broken and scattered to form the mountains and hills, creating the dramatic landscapes that would define the northern countries. His skull became the dome of heaven, held aloft at its four corners by four dwarves whose names, Nori, Suri, Austri, and Vestri, gave their names to the cardinal directions. The brothers scattered Ymir's brains into the sky, where they became the clouds that would bring rain to water the earth. Even his eyebrows found a purpose, becoming the walls of Midgard that would protect the realm of humans from the chaos of the outer worlds. From Ymir's body came not just the physical world, but also its first inhabitants. The maggots that appeared in the giant's flesh were transformed by the gods into the dwarves, master craftsmen who would delve deep into the earth and forge the most precious treasures, rings that granted wishes, spears that never missed their mark, hammers that could level mountains. These dwarves received names that reflected their connection to the earth and to craftsmanship: Nai and Nai, Nordri and Sudri, Austri and Vestri, Alfjof and Valen. But the world still lacked the spark of intelligent life beyond the gods themselves. Walking along a seashore, the three brothers found two logs washed up by the waves, an ash and an elm. From these pieces of driftwood, they created the first humans. Odin breathed life and spirit into them, Vili gave them consciousness and the power of movement, and Ve provided them with speech, sight, and hearing. They named the man Ask, after the ash tree, and the woman Embla, after the elm, and from this first couple would come all the generations of humanity. What makes this creation story particularly moving is its acknowledgement that creation requires sacrifice, even cosmic sacrifice. The world is built from loss, and even the gods themselves must pay a price for the beauty and order they wish to bring into being. This theme of necessary sacrifice echoes throughout all of Norse mythology, preparing us for later tales where gods will sacrifice their hands, their eyes, even their lives in service of wisdom, protection, and the greater good. As you drift deeper into rest, consider this ancient wisdom about the relationship between ending and beginning, about how destruction and creation dance together in the eternal work of bringing forth beauty from chaos. Among all the gods of the Norse pantheon, none captures the imagination quite like Odin, the All-Father, the Wanderer, the Hanged God, the one-eyed seeker of wisdom whose restless spirit drives him to roam all 9 worlds in pursuit of knowledge that might postpone, if not prevent, the inevitable twilight of the gods. Odin is not the kind of deity who rests comfortably in celestial glory, content with worship and sacrifice. Instead, he walks the roads of Midgard in countless disguises, always searching, always learning, always preparing for challenges he knows must come. Odin's character reflects something uniquely Norse in its understanding of divine power. Unlike gods in many mythologies who are defined by their unchanging perfection, Odin is a god of transformation, growth, and the painful acquisition of wisdom. He embodies the principle that even the mightiest must continue learning, that power without wisdom leads to destruction, and that the highest forms of knowledge can only be bought with personal sacrifice. The most haunting and beautiful tale of Odin's quest for wisdom tells of how he sacrificed his eye for a single drink from Mimir's well of memory and prophecy. Mimir was once among the wisest of the gods, but his head was severed during a war between the divine families and now guards the sacred well that bears his name. The waters of this well contain not just knowledge of all things past, present, and future, but understanding of the hidden connections that link all events across all the worlds. When Odin came to the well and requested a drink, Mimir's response revealed the true cost of wisdom. The guardian demanded not gold or favors, but Odin's eye, not out of cruelty, but because true wisdom requires giving up one way of seeing in order to gain another. Physical sight, no matter how keen, can only perceive surfaces. To see into the heart of things, to understand the deeper patterns that govern existence, requires a different kind of vision entirely. Without hesitation, Odin plucked out his own eye and cast it into the sacred waters. The physical pain was nothing compared to what he experienced when he drank from the well. In those prophetic waters, he saw visions of Ragnarök, the twilight of the gods, showing him that even he and all he loved were destined to fall when chaos finally overwhelms order. He saw the deaths of his sons, the burning of Yggdrasil, the wolves swallowing sun and moon. Yet this terrible knowledge became his greatest strength, allowing him to prepare, to gather heroes, to ensure that something good would survive the ending. But Odin's most profound sacrifice was yet to come. Seeking the secret of the runes, those magical symbols that could bind fate itself and grant power over the very structure of reality, he performed an act of self-sacrifice that continues to resonate across cultures and centuries. He hanged himself from Yggdrasil, the world tree, pierced by his own spear Gungnir, and remained there for 9 days and 9 nights without food or water. The Havamal, one of the poems preserved in the Poetic Edda, records Odin's own words describing this ordeal. I know that I hung on a windy tree 9 long nights, wounded with a spear, dedicated to Odin, myself to myself, on that tree of which no man knows from where its roots spring. This image of the hanged god sacrificing himself to himself represents something profound about the nature of spiritual transformation, that the deepest wisdom comes from surrendering what we think we are in order to discover what we truly are. Historical evidence suggests that ritual hanging was indeed practiced in Norse culture, particularly in connection with Odin worship. Archaeological excavations at sites like Gamla Uppsala in Sweden have uncovered evidence of sacrificial practices, including what appear to be ritual hangings. The Roman historian Tacitus described similar practices among Germanic tribes, lending credence to these mythological accounts. The image of the hanged god who sacrifices himself for wisdom appears across many cultures, from Celtic druids to shamanic traditions worldwide, suggesting something deep and universal in the human understanding of how profound transformation occurs. During his ordeal on the tree, Odin experienced a kind of shamanic death and rebirth. As his physical strength failed and his ordinary consciousness dissolved, he entered into direct communion with the cosmic forces that govern reality. In that liminal space between life and death, the runes revealed themselves. Not as mere symbols, but as living expressions of the fundamental powers that shape existence. When he finally grasped their meaning and cried out, the runes lifted him down from the tree, and he became the first rune master, able to use their power for healing, prophecy, and magic. The runes themselves were understood as far more than a writing system. Each symbol contained within it a specific power or principle, Fehu for wealth and abundance, Uras for strength and vitality, Thuris as for protection and defense. By combining runes in specific patterns, one could influence the course of events, heal the sick, ensure victory in battle, or glimpse the hidden patterns of fate. Archaeological finds across Scandinavia include thousands of rune stones and rune-carved objects, testament to how deeply this knowledge penetrated Norse culture. Odin's wisdom-seeking didn't end with his mastery of the runes. He traveled constantly, appearing as a wanderer in a wide-brimmed hat and grey cloak, sometimes calling himself Grimnir the Masked One, sometimes Gangleri the Wanderer. He would sit in disguise at kings' tables, listening to their conversations, testing their wisdom and hospitality. He consulted vulvas, female seers, to learn what fate held in store. He ventured into the realm of the dead to question fallen heroes about their knowledge of warfare and strategy. Two ravens, Hugin and Munin, thought and memory, perch on Odin's shoulders and fly across all the worlds each day, returning each evening to whisper in his ears everything they have seen and heard. These ravens represent the active principle of intelligence that never rests, always gathering information, always seeking to understand the shifting patterns of possibility and probability that determine how events will unfold. His eight-legged horse Sleipnir, born from Loki's shape-shifting, can travel between the worlds of the living and the dead, carrying Odin on journeys no ordinary mount could survive. Sleipnir represents the shaman's ability to transcend ordinary limitations, to journey into realms of experience usually forbidden to mortal consciousness. Odin's Hall Valhalla serves not just as a paradise for fallen warriors, but as a training ground for the final battle of Ragnarök. The Einherjar, chosen slain, spend their days fighting and their evenings feasting, preparing for the time when they will march forth to face the forces of chaos in defense of order and civilization. This reflects the Norse understanding that even enjoyment and rest serve a deeper purpose, that pleasure gains meaning when it serves the greater good. Yet perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Odin's character is how he embodies the principle that wisdom and power bring responsibility rather than privilege. The more he learns, the heavier his burden becomes. The more clearly he sees the future, the more urgently he must work to prepare for it. His sacrifices purchase not comfort, but obligation, the duty to use his knowledge in service of all life. As you sink deeper into peaceful rest, let Odin's example remind you that the greatest treasures often come not from comfort and ease, but from the courage to venture into the unknown, to ask difficult questions, to sacrifice what we think we want for what we truly need. While Odin represents the complex path of wisdom gained through sacrifice, his son Thor embodies a different but equally essential kind of strength, the straightforward courage that stands firm between order and chaos, protecting the vulnerable and maintaining the boundaries that allow civilization to flourish. With his mighty hammer Mjolnir, his belt of strength, and his chariot drawn by two magical goats, Thor patrols the borders of Midgard, our world, serving as humanity's most reliable defender against the giants who would destroy everything mortals have built. Thor's character reflects the Norse understanding that while wisdom and cunning have their place, sometimes what's needed is simple, honest strength wielded in service of protection. Unlike his father's complex motivations and subtle strategies, Thor's purpose is clear and unwavering: defend those who cannot defend themselves, maintain the boundaries between order and chaos, and ensure that the forces of destruction do not overwhelm the forces of creation. The god's most treasured possession is Mjolnir, whose name means lightning, and which was forged by the dwarven brothers Brakr and Sindri in their underground workshops. The hammer possesses several magical properties that make it the perfect weapon for fighting chaos. It never misses its target, no matter how far it's thrown or how swift its intended victim. After being hurled, it always returns to Thor's hand like a faithful hunting bird. Most importantly, it has the power to level mountains and shatter the strongest giant fortresses, yet it can also be used for blessing, consecrating marriages, ensuring fertility, and protecting the innocent. Thor's adventures often read like cosmic comedy, but beneath the humor lies something profound about the nature of protection, duty, and the price of maintaining order in an uncertain world. In one of the most famous tales, Thor awakens one morning to discover that his hammer has been stolen while he slept. Without Mjolnir, not only is Thor powerless, but all of Midgard lies defenseless against the giants who constantly probe for weaknesses in the cosmic order. The thief proves to be Thrym, king of the giants, who has hidden Mjolnir deep beneath the earth and demands the goddess Freya as his bride in exchange for its return. When the gods present this demand to Freya, she becomes so enraged that her famous necklace Brisingamen breaks apart, and she flatly refuses to marry any giant, no matter what the cost. Faced with this impasse, Loki the shapeshifter suggests a plan so outrageous it borders on the absurd. Thor will disguise himself as Freya and attend his own ransom wedding. The image this creates is wonderfully ridiculous. The mighty Thor, god of thunder and protector of humanity, squeezed into a wedding dress and bridal veil, trying to sit delicately at the giant's feast while maintaining his feminine disguise. The deception nearly fails several times. When Thrym comments on the bride's enormous appetite, Thor devours an entire ox, 8 salmon, and 3 barrels of mead. Loki quickly explains that Freya was so excited about the wedding that she hasn't eaten for 8 days. When Thrym tries to kiss his bride and is startled by the fire blazing in her eyes, Loki claims that Freya hasn't slept for 8 nights in anticipation of this moment. Finally, following ancient custom, Thrym orders Mjolnir brought forth to consecrate the marriage by placing it in the bride's lap. The moment the hammer touches his hands, Thor throws off his disguise and proceeds to demonstrate why stealing from gods is never a wise decision. The wedding hall erupts in violence as Thor sets to work with his retrieved weapon, and the story ends with the giant stronghold in ruins and Thor victorious, though presumably still wearing parts of his wedding dress. While this tale provides excellent entertainment, its deeper meaning speaks to the lengths good people must sometimes go to protect what they value. Thor's willingness to endure humiliation and ridicule in order to recover his weapon demonstrates that true strength sometimes requires setting aside pride and doing whatever is necessary to fulfill one's responsibilities. Thor's most significant role isn't as a comedic figure but as the defender against the forces of entropy and dissolution that constantly threaten to overwhelm the ordered world. The giants in Norse mythology don't represent simple evil in the way we might understand it today. Instead, they embody the wild, chaotic forces of nature that exist in constant tension with civilization, earthquakes that topple buildings, storms that sink ships, famines that starve populations, plagues that devastate communities, winter cold that can kill the unprepared. Archaeological evidence reveals that Thor was perhaps the most widely worshipped deity among common people throughout the Norse world. Miniature Thor's hammer pendants have been found in graves across Scandinavia, often worn as protective amulets and buried with their owners as protection in the afterlife. These archaeological finds suggest that ordinary people saw Thor as their personal protector, the god who cared about their daily struggles and would intervene on their behalf against forces beyond human control. Thor's cult was so strong and pervasive that when Christianity began spreading northward, many Thor worshippers found it natural to transfer their devotion to Saint Michael the Archangel, another warrior figure who fought against chaotic forces. Some early Christian churches in Scandinavia were built on sites previously sacred to Thor, and Christian prayers sometimes incorporated language and imagery borrowed from Thor worship. The sound of thunder was understood as Thor's chariot racing across the sky as he rushed to battle giants who threatened the cosmic order. Lightning was seen as Mjolnir being hurled at enemies of civilization. In this way, every storm became a reminder that divine forces were actively engaged in protecting the world from chaos. There's something deeply comforting about imagining a benevolent protector in the storm clouds, someone whose power dwarfs human strength but whose heart remains committed to defending human welfare. Thor's goats, Tangrisnir and Tangjostr, Teeth-bearer and Teeth-grinder, possess the magical property that they can be slaughtered and eaten each evening, then restored to life the next morning if their bones are not broken. This detail reflects the Norse understanding of renewal and the cyclical nature of strength. True power doesn't exhaust itself but finds ways to renew and restore itself for the next day's challenges. Thor's wife Sif possesses hair of spun gold, which some scholars interpret as representing the golden grain fields that feed human civilization. When Loki cuts off her hair as a prank, he threatens the very foundation of agricultural abundance, and Thor's rage reflects the seriousness of this threat to human survival. Loki's subsequent journey to commission new golden hair from the Dark Elves represents the lengths to which even trickster figures must go to restore what they have carelessly damaged. The god's hall Bilskirnir has more rooms than any other dwelling in Asgard, reflecting his role as protector of all people. Unlike Odin's Valhalla, which welcomes only fallen warriors, or Freya's Sessrumnir, which houses those who died for love, Thor's hall stands ready to shelter anyone who needs protection, regardless of their station or accomplishments. In a harsh world where survival often depended on community cooperation and mutual protection, Thor embodied the ideal of strength used in service of others rather than for personal aggrandizement. His straightforward nature, his commitment to his responsibilities, and his willingness to face any danger in defense of the innocent made him a beloved figure whose protection people could trust completely. Let Thor's steady, reliable presence ease your mind as you sink deeper into peaceful sleep, knowing that some battles are being fought on your behalf by forces greater than yourself, that there are protectors who never tire in their vigilance, and that the thunder you hear in storms carries with it the promise that good will ultimately triumph over chaos. No figure in Norse mythology is more complex, controversial, or essential to the cosmic drama than Loki, the shapeshifter who walks the razor's edge between creation and destruction, friend and enemy of the gods, catalyst of change and agent of transformation. Neither fully god nor giant, though he springs from giant lineage, Loki occupies a unique space in the pantheon as the force that questions everything, challenges every assumption, and ensures that nothing remains static for long. Loki's fundamental nature as a shapeshifter reflects his role as the embodiment of change itself. He has appeared as a salmon leaping upstream, a fly buzzing around the gods' halls, a mare running wild across the fields, an old woman sitting by a fire, a falcon soaring through the sky, and countless other forms. These transformations aren't mere magical tricks but expressions of his essential being as the principle that nothing in existence remains fixed or unchanging forever. In one of the most memorable tales, Loki transforms into a mare to distract Svalfari, the stallion helping a giant builder construct walls around Asgard. The gods had made an unwise bargain, promising the giant the sun, moon, and goddess Freya if he could complete the fortifications in a single winter. When it becomes clear that the giant will succeed with his stallion's help, Loki takes mare form to lead the stallion away on a wild chase. The result is that the giant fails to complete his work and the gods avoid paying their dangerous debt, but Loki also becomes pregnant and eventually gives birth to Sleipnir, the eight-legged horse that becomes Odin's mount. This story illustrates something profound about transformation and its consequences. Loki's willingness to change not just his form but his very nature, becoming female, bearing young, saves the gods but also transforms him in ways that can never be undone. The tale reflects ancient understandings of gender and identity as more fluid than our contemporary culture often assumes, while also acknowledging that some changes carry permanent consequences. What makes Loki particularly fascinating is his role as both problem and solution, creator of crises and resolver of difficulties. When he cuts off Sif's beautiful hair as a prank, leaving Thor's wife bald and the god furious, Loki must venture into Svartalfheim to commission new hair of spun gold from the Dark Elves. But he doesn't stop there. Competitive as always, he tricks the elves into creating even more wonders: Odin's spear Gungnir that never misses its mark, and Thor's hammer Mjolnir that always returns to his hand. This pattern repeats throughout the myths. Loki's shape-shifting creates a dangerous situation when he helps the gods make their reckless bargain with the giant builder, but his further transformations also provide the solution. His curiosity and meddling often set events in motion that lead to greater treasures and deeper wisdom than would have emerged from playing it safe. The psychological and spiritual insights embedded in Loki's character run remarkably deep. He represents that aspect of human nature that questions authority, challenges conventions, and refuses to accept things simply because they've always been that way. He's the voice that asks, what if, even when asking leads to trouble. Every healthy society needs both stability and the forces that question that stability, tradition and innovation, security and the courage to explore new possibilities. Loki embodies the creative principle that emerges from the marriage of opposing forces. His parentage reflects this. His father Farbodi's name means cruel striker, associated with lightning, while his mother Laufey, also called Nal, is associated with leaves and nurturing growth. From the union of destructive and creative forces comes the shapeshifter who can destroy and create with equal facility. The gods' relationship with Loki mirrors humanity's complex relationship with change itself. They need him. His cleverness has saved them repeatedly from their own poor decisions. Yet they also fear him, knowing that his nature makes him ultimately unpredictable. They welcome his help but worry about the prices his assistance might exact. This reflects the universal human experience of needing growth and change while simultaneously fearing the disruption that transformation brings. Loki's children embody different aspects of his transformative nature. Jormungandr, the world serpent, represents the boundaries of the known world, simultaneously protective barrier and potential threat. Fenrir the wolf embodies strength that grows beyond all attempts to contain it. Hel, the goddess of the realm of the dead, rules over the natural process by which life transforms into death and death into new life. But Loki's story takes a darker turn as the myths progress. His increasing alienation from the gods reaches its climax in the death of Baldur the Beautiful, the most beloved of the divine family. Through a combination of jealousy, curiosity, and malice, Loki orchestrates the death of the one god whose loss brings grief to the entire cosmos. This act crosses a line from creative chaos to destructive evil, from necessary disruption to cruel harm. The gods' response is swift and terrible. They bind Loki beneath the earth with chains made from his son's entrails, positioning a serpent above him so that venom drips constantly onto his face. His faithful wife Sigyn sits beside him, catching the poison in a bowl, but when she must empty it, the venom strikes his face and his writhing in agony causes earthquakes. Even in punishment, Loki remains a force of nature. The Norse understood that the earth itself was alive and restless, and in Loki's imprisonment they found an explanation for the ground's occasional trembling. Every earthquake was a reminder that transformative forces continue to work beneath the surface of apparent stability, that change cannot be permanently contained no matter how strong the chains that attempt to bind it. The binding of Loki represents humanity's eternal struggle with the disruptive forces of change. We need transformation to grow and evolve, yet we fear the chaos it brings. We benefit from questioning established patterns, yet we worry about the stability that criticism might undermine. Loki's imprisonment suggests that while we can temporarily contain disruptive forces, we cannot eliminate them entirely, and perhaps we shouldn't want to, for a world without change would be a world without growth, innovation, or renewal. Norse prophecy tells us that Loki will not remain bound forever. At Ragnarök, the twilight of the gods, he will break free from his chains and lead the forces of chaos in the final battle against order. Yet even this apparent victory of destruction over creation is not the end of the story, for from that cosmic conflagration will emerge a new world, green and beautiful, where the cycle of growth and change can begin anew. As you rest tonight, perhaps you can find some peace in understanding that chaos and order need each other, that questions and stability are both necessary parts of growth, that transformation, even when it brings temporary disruption, serves the larger pattern of renewal that governs all existence. In your dreams, may you find the courage to embrace necessary changes while maintaining your connection to what truly matters. And so we come to the end that is also a beginning, Ragnarök, the twilight of the gods, the final battle that destroys one cosmic age and births another. But don't let the name frighten you as you settle deeper into rest, for this is not a story of hopeless ending, but of transformation, renewal, and the eternal cycle of death and rebirth that governs all existence from the smallest seed to the greatest star. The word Ragnarök itself means fate of the gods, or twilight of the gods, suggesting not arbitrary destruction but the fulfillment of destiny, the completion of a cosmic pattern that was woven into the fabric of existence from the very beginning. The Norse understood that all things, even gods and worlds, follow natural cycles of birth, growth, decline, and renewal. What makes their vision unique is how it finds hope and meaning within this inevitable process of transformation. The signs of Ragnarök's approach are subtle at first, like the early warnings of a long winter. The Fimbulwinter begins, a winter so severe it lasts 3 full years with no summer between to provide relief. Snow falls from every direction, winds cut like knives, and the sun provides no warmth. This cosmic winter reflects not just physical cold but spiritual coldness as well, as the bonds of kinship and community begin to break down under the pressure of prolonged hardship. During this terrible winter, moral decay spreads across all the worlds. Brother fights against brother, breaking the most sacred ties of blood loyalty. Fathers and sons become enemies, mothers abandon their children, and the ancient laws that held society together crumble like ice in spring flood. The wolf age comes, when human beings behave like wild beasts, and the axe age, when violence becomes the only language anyone understands. The wind age brings constant change and uncertainty, while the sword age sees weapons drawn in every hall. But these social breakdowns are merely reflections of cosmic disturbances that shake the very foundations of existence. The wolf Fenrir, Loki's son who was bound by the gods when he grew too large and dangerous to trust, finally breaks free from the magical chain Gleipnir that has held him since his youth. His howl echoes across all 9 worlds, a sound so terrible that it strikes fear into the hearts of even the bravest gods. In the ocean surrounding Midgard, Jormungandr the world serpent begins to thrash and writhe, his movements causing tidal waves that crash over all the coastlands. The serpent's writhing is so violent that the sea rises up and floods much of the land, while his breath spreads poison throughout the air. The very boundaries between land and sea, order and chaos, begin to dissolve. The ship Naglfar, built entirely from the fingernails of the dead, breaks free from its moorings in Helheim. This vessel, whose very construction reminds us that even the seemingly insignificant parts of existence contribute to great cosmic events, carries the armies of the dishonored dead toward their final battle. The ship's captain is Loki himself, finally freed from his underground prison, his face scarred by the venom that dripped on him for ages but his spirit unbroken and his desire for revenge unquenched. From Muspelheim, the fire realm, comes Surtur the fire giant, bearing a sword that burns brighter than the sun itself. His army of fire demons marches across the rainbow bridge Bifrost, their footsteps burning away the very path that once connected the worlds of gods and men. The bridge, despite being described as stronger than any earthly construction, crumbles under their assault, severing the last reliable connection between divine and human realms. The great tree Yggdrasil, which has stood firm through all the ages of the world, begins to shake and groan. Its leaves wither, its branches crack, and for the first time in cosmic history, its roots begin to loosen in the earth. The Norns who have tended it faithfully since the beginning of time find their sacred well fouled, their pure water turned bitter. Even the cosmic foundation of existence trembles as the final battle approaches. On the plain of Vigrid, a battlefield so vast it stretches for 120 leagues in every direction, the final confrontation takes place. This is not simply a battle between good and evil, but a collision between 2 principles, order and chaos, creation and destruction, the forces that build and preserve and those that tear down and transform. Odin, the All-Father, rides forth on Sleipnir to face Fenrir the wolf, knowing from his visions in Mimir's well that this battle will be his last. The one-eyed god who sacrificed so much to gain wisdom now sacrifices his life itself, swallowed by the great wolf whose binding he ordered so long ago. Yet even in death, Odin achieves a kind of victory, for his son Vidar immediately avenges him, using a special boot prepared for this moment to kick open Fenrir's jaws and tear them apart. Thor faces his ancient enemy Jormungandr in their final confrontation. The god of thunder succeeds in slaying the world serpent with mighty blows of Mjolnir, but the victory comes at a terrible price. The serpent's dying breath releases such a cloud of poison that Thor, despite his divine strength, can only take 9 steps before falling dead himself, bringing an end to the long career of Midgard's most faithful protector. Freyr, the god of fertility and abundance, confronts Surtur the fire demon, but he fights at a terrible disadvantage. Long ago, He traded away his magical sword for the chance to win the heart of the giantess Geir, and now he faces the most dangerous opponent of all while armed only with a stag's antler. The god who brought prosperity to the world dies in flames, and with him dies the promise of easy abundance. One by one, the gods fall in battle, not because they are weak or cowardly, but because they face enemies specifically destined to destroy them. Heimdall and Loki, the watchman of the gods and the bound trickster, kill each other in single combat, their long enmity finally resolved in mutual annihilation. The Aesir and the giants, the Vanir and the fire demons, all the ancient divisions that have shaped cosmic history, meet their end in a final expenditure of all the forces that have driven existence since creation began. But the destruction is not limited to the divine realm. Fire spreads across all the worlds, consuming forests, cities, and fields. The sun turns black and falls from the sky, the stars disappear from their courses, and the very structure of reality begins to collapse. Yggdrasil burns, its great branches crackling and falling, its roots consumed by flame. For a time that seems eternal, there is only fire and darkness, silence and emptiness. Yet this is not the end of the story, for the Norse understanding of time includes the principle of eternal renewal. From the ashes and silence of the destroyed worlds, something new begins to stir. A new earth rises from the sea, green and fertile, more beautiful than the old world had ever been. The grass grows thicker, the flowers bloom brighter, and fruit trees bear food without need of cultivation. Some of the gods survive this cosmic transformation. Vidar and Vali, sons of Odin who were destined to outlive their father, emerge from the ruins to help establish the new cosmic order. Modi and Magni, Thor's sons, inherit their father's hammer Mjolnir and his role as protectors of the innocent. Most remarkably, Baldur the Beautiful returns from Helheim, his death finally reversed, bringing with him his brother Hr, who had been the unwitting instrument of his killing. Two humans also survive the cosmic conflagration by hiding within the world tree itself while the fires rage around them. Lith and Liftrazor, life and life's longing, emerge when the flames die down to find themselves in a world made new. From this surviving couple will come all the generations of humanity in the renewed world, but they carry within them the wisdom gained from the previous cosmic age. The sun, which fell and died in the last battle, has given birth to a daughter who now rises to light the new world. This new sun shines more gently than her mother, providing warmth without the harsh extremes that sometimes made life difficult in the old world. Day and night continue their eternal dance, but now with a rhythm more perfectly suited to supporting life and growth. In this new world, the halls of the gods are rebuilt, but they shine more brightly than before. Gimel, a hall roofed with gold, stands as a gathering place for the righteous dead. The new cosmic order incorporates lessons learned from the struggles and failures of the previous age, suggesting that destruction and renewal serve the purpose of continuous improvement, eternal growth toward greater beauty and wisdom. What makes the Norse vision of ending and renewal particularly profound is how it balances realistic acknowledgement of loss with genuine hope for the future. The myths don't pretend that destruction isn't real or that death doesn't matter. The gods truly die, the worlds actually burn, and the grief of ending is fully acknowledged. Yet within this honest confrontation with mortality lies a deeper truth, that every ending creates space for something new, that destruction and creation are partners in the ongoing work of existence. This cyclical vision of time offers a different kind of comfort than myths that promise eternal stasis or final victory over all problems. Instead, it suggests that struggle and renewal are permanent features of existence, that every generation has the opportunity to do better than the last, and that no defeat, no matter how total it seems, can prevent life from eventually finding a way to begin again. Modern scholars like Rudolf Simek and John Lindau have noted how Ragnarök stories may have been influenced by volcanic activity in Iceland, massive forest fires, and other geological phenomena familiar to the Norse peoples. The description of the earth being consumed by fire and then rising renewed from the sea closely matches what happens when volcanic islands emerge from the ocean. But whether the myths were inspired by literal natural disasters or represent purely symbolic accounts of spiritual transformation, they offer profound wisdom about how to live with dignity in the face of uncertainty. The Norse vision teaches us that courage isn't the absence of fear about the future, but the willingness to meet whatever comes with dignity, purpose, and hope. It suggests that our actions matter not because they guarantee permanent victory over all problems, but because they contribute to the ongoing work of creation, the eternal effort to bring forth beauty and meaning from the raw materials of existence. As you drift now toward the deepest levels of rest, let this ancient wisdom accompany you into dreams. Rest in the knowledge that endings are not failures but transformations, that what seems like destruction may be preparation for something more beautiful than we can currently imagine. The Norse understood that true courage lies not in trying to prevent all change, but in trusting that life itself is stronger than any particular threat, that renewal follows even the darkest night, and that dawn always comes to those who have the patience to wait for it. The old stories whisper their promise across the centuries, that spring returns after the harshest winter, that new growth emerges from ground that seemed permanently barren, that from every ending, no matter how final it appears, something precious and unexpected can grow. Sleep well, knowing you are part of this endless story of renewal, carried safely in the branches of existence itself, connected to all life through the great pattern that includes both ending and beginning, destruction and creation, the twilight that leads inevitably to dawn. As our journey through the Norse cosmos draws to its close, we find ourselves where all the greatest stories end, at a beginning. The ancient voices that first spoke these tales around winter fires understood something that speaks to every human heart, that life is not a straight line leading to a final destination, but a spiral dance of growth, challenge, rest, and renewal. In your dreams tonight, may you carry with you the wisdom of Yggdrasil, knowing that you are connected to all existence through invisible but unbreakable bonds. May you find Odin's courage to seek wisdom even when the price seems high, Thor's strength to protect what matters most, and even something of Loki's willingness to embrace the transformations that life brings, whether we choose them or they choose us. The Norse peoples who created these stories lived in a world of extremes, endless winter nights balanced by summer days when the sun barely set, fjords that carved deep into solid rock, auroras that painted the sky with impossible colors. They knew that beauty and hardship often arrive together, that strength grows from facing challenges rather than avoiding them, and that the most profound peace comes not from the absence of conflict but from the wisdom to find meaning within life's eternal dance of order and chaos. Rest now in the embrace of these ancient truths, knowing that tomorrow's dawn carries within it all the possibility of renewal, all the promise of growth, all the potential for beauty that has ever existed or ever will exist. You are part of a story larger than any individual life, connected to the great web of existence that links every breath to every star, every dream to every awakening. Sleep peacefully, carried gently forward by the same forces that have sustained life through countless cycles of ending and beginning. In the morning, you will rise renewed, ready to write your own chapter in the endless story of growth, challenge, and transformation that makes existence itself the greatest adventure of all.